Well, it's good to see everyone, and to anyone who's on the internet watching. Hopefully you're smiling back at us. So, anyways, good to have you here. You know, there are developments that are going to be making it harder and harder for future generations to know and to recognize that Saturday is the seventh day of the week, that Saturday is the biblical Sabbath. For example, consider ISO 8601, which standardizes how dates are represented and communicated in computers or by computers. According to the International Organization of Standardization's website, quote, ISO 8601 describes an internationally acceptable way to represent dates and times using numbers. This, of course, is necessary to allow clear communication. As the ISO website says, when dates are represented with numbers, they can be interpreted in different ways. For example, 01/05/12, well, that could mean January 5 of 2012. But it could also mean May 1st of 2012. ISO 8601 tackles this uncertainty by setting out an internationally agreed upon way to represent dates. What do we have first? Is it the years, the month, then the day? So that's great. But that standardization also numbers the weeks of the year. And to do that, they had to agree upon a starting of the week. And they chose Monday. So in this system, Saturday would be the sixth day of the week, which does not reflect the biblical numbering. In addition, many calendars in Europe already state and put down Monday as the first day of the week. This too makes it more and more confusing for Bible readers in Europe to recognize the true seventh day of the week. So before the lights of history dim too darkly, let's look at just a few basic facts about the Sabbath and when is the Sabbath. When does the Sabbath start? The seventh day of the week is when the Sabbath starts, and we can clearly see this in Genesis 2. In Genesis 2, look at what it says. It says, thus the heavens and the earth and all the host of them were finished. And on the seventh day God ended his work which he had done. And he rested on the seventh day from all his work. God rested from his work, which he had done. Then God blessed the seventh day, sanctified it, because he had rested from all his work which he had created and made. So after 6 days of physical creation, God took a break. He rested from his physical laboring, from the work that he was creating. You know, he is a creator. So he's busy doing his work. He's busy creating, and he takes a break from that. But he didn't just take a break from work. He did other things associated with the Sabbath. He blessed it. He blessed the seventh day, not all the days, but he blessed the seventh day. He sanctified it. He set apart the seventh day for a special purpose, for a special use. The Sabbath day is not a date on the calendar. It is the seventh day of an unending 7-day cycle. That weekly cycle has been consistent from creation week until now. God reiterated the seventh-day Sabbath with the miracle of manna during the Exodus from Egypt, where he rained down a double portion on Friday and then nothing on the Sabbath. So he reconfirmed. So for a nation that had lost God, lost track of God, wasn't keeping the Sabbath, God made clear, I'm putting you right back on track so you know exactly when this Sabbath day is. So that you and I don't have to wonder, do we really know? Was it changed? Did someone make a mistake? God has made sure that this knowledge is preserved for those that need to have it. It's not an impassable task. So when reestablishing the nation of Israel, God reestablished Sabbath keeping in time. Notice what it says in Deuteronomy. So he's bringing them out and he's reestablishing a nation. He's saying, I'm going to lay down these commandments. And I'm going to help you get started out on the right path. So here's what he tells them. right? When he's going through these laws. So in Deuteronomy 5, and we'll pick up in verse 12. He says, observe the Sabbath day and keep it holy. So it's already holy, so you got to keep it holy. So we're talking about the Sabbath day, the seventh day. As the Lord your God has commanded you, 6 days shall you labor and do your work. So get your work done on those 6 days. But the seventh day is a Sabbath unto the Lord. There it is. The seventh day is the Sabbath, once again. To your Lord your God, on it you shall do no work, neither you nor your son, and on he goes. So it's very clear that the seventh day is the Sabbath. Right? God's making that clear. And even though things get murky at times, God resets it, makes sure everyone knows we're on the same page. There's no guessing, did we get the right day? We didn't have to say, did they figure it out during all those years of captivity? God sets them up, makes sure they know right when it is. So now the question is Saturday the seventh day? And yes, the evidence is going to be overwhelming. We don't have to wonder, did someone mess up a day? Did someone get something out of cycle, right? So consider a few things about this. And remember, God calls things what they are. God knows what he's doing. And God tells people, remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. So if all people, all the first fruits are supposed to remember the Sabbath day and keep it holy, it must be possible to know when that Sabbath day is. Otherwise, he would be telling you to do something impossible, or to take out the dice and roll them and say, well, I hope I got the right day. I hope that really is Saturday. He didn't do that. That's not the way he works. He has order. He has discipline. He has a very well thought out plan, right? Even when they left Egypt, right? On the self-same day, he says, you're going to be in captivity this long. And then at the very end of that thing, on the self-same day, they come out. So God knows what he's doing. Think about this. Jesus Christ lived without sin. So one day did he keep the Sabbath? Well, Scripture is very clear that he kept it when the Jews did. He was constantly going to the synagogue on the Sabbath day. Christ did this, right? Throughout the Scripture in the New Testament, you can see the apostles afterward, as were their custom. They went on the Sabbath day and they were at the synagogue. So you can see that Christ was keeping the Sabbath day just like that, right? In Luke 4, it says about Jesus, he went into the synagogue on the Sabbath day. These were normal activities for him to be doing. Now, you also think about that God says that he's going to entrust the Old Testament to the Jews for them to keep and preserve all of this truth. And how do you apply it? There's the oral law, there's the written law. They were responsible for transporting this knowledge from generation to generation to do it very, very accurately. And so that's what they did. And so they have the Sabbath as being Saturday, right? And it's been not changing. They haven't argued about it. If you get a bunch of Jews or rabbis together, they'll argue about a lot of different things. But this is one of the few things they don't argue about. There is complete agreement. Saturday is the Sabbath, and it has been that way for millennia. There's been no conflict in that. All right? So for thousands of years, they've done that. Millions of Jews have kept and believed that Saturday was the seventh day of the week. Now, here's something interesting. There are over 100 languages on earth that use the word Sabbath for Saturday. Right? So many things, when we use words, there's a reason. People even do a study, etymology. They say, where did this word come from? And you'll track these things back, and there's a very logical reason for why those words are used the way they are. So 100 different languages, 100 different nations have believed and have associated Saturday with the Sabbath, with the biblical Sabbath. When we think about it, the Jews, the Catholics, the Seventh-day Adventists, the Seventh-day Baptists, all the many different churches of God, and you can go on, but there are millions, if not billions, of people that have understood and believed throughout history that Saturday was the Sabbath, right? Webster's dictionary states this: Saturday is the seventh day of the week, and Sunday is the first day of the week. In a section on the Ten Commandments, the Catholic Encyclopedia says this: the church, on the other hand, after changing the day of rest from the Jewish Sabbath, or seventh day of the week, to the first, made the third commandment, we would call it the fourth commandment, to refer to Sunday as the day to be kept holy. So here the Catholic Church acknowledge that we did this, that this was always the seventh day, and we are now changing, and we're now saying not that these days are mixed up, but that we're now changing. When do you worship God, and what day will God call holy? We're going to shift and say now God's going to treat the first day of the week as holy. But they understand and they know that the Sabbath is the seventh day. They know that's what the Bible's talking about. When you read the Ten Commandments, it's referring to Saturday, the seventh day. And if you're going to keep Sunday, you have to believe in one of two things. Either you can rationalize it like the Protestants do, or you have to say that the Catholic Church, someone in there has the power to change what's holy time and what's not. Those are choices everyone can make, but at least there's no disguise, there's no confusion, there's no deceptions about what is and what was meant when the Bible talks about the seventh day and the Sabbath day. It is referring to Saturday. All right? So now another thing for us to make sure that we have clear that as we go along and we think about teaching our kids, that we know when does a day start from. All right? So a biblical day has never, ever, not once, started at midnight. God has always reckoned days, as long as there's been days, as long as man has been around, they start at sundown. But it never starts at midnight. That's something that man has done. Man has just made that up and stuffed it in there, and over time people just believe it and go along that way, and many don't even stop to think about it. But the pattern established in Genesis is sundown to sundown. Once again, if you go to Genesis 1, and we'll start in verse 2 and 3, God's talking about the first day. It begins with darkness before light. Then after that God brought light. The Bible defines a day as such, quote, "And there was evening, and there was morning, the first day." You'll find that pattern is throughout the Bible and throughout Genesis there. Verse 8, verse 19, verse 13, verse 23, verse 31. God talks about what he does, and then he says, and then there was a day, and there was a night, and that's a day. Right? So we start to see that you have these two components in there. And so consistently, the first evening, and then there was a morning, and this pattern is the basis for the proposition that the biblical day starts at sundown to sundown. Now, if you will, go to Leviticus 23, we see again this pattern. And remember that God says he's the same yesterday, today, and forever. He doesn't change. He's very consistent. But Leviticus 23:32, we're talking about atonement. But notice again about a Sabbath day and about how God thinks about when a day starts. In verse 32 of Leviticus 23, "And it shall be unto you a Sabbath of rest, and you shall afflict your souls in the 9th day of the month at even unto even. From even unto even shall you celebrate your Sabbath." So there again we see this consistent pattern. So when we're telling our kids and our grandkids, generations down the line, this isn't stuff we're making up. There's a reason for it. We look to the Bible to get our patterns, if you want to even say, to have our customs in the church. But they're based on the biblical understanding. They're based on the things that we can look at and see, what has God said to do? How has he said to think? How has he said to argue and reason and to look at things? So in an article titled, "When Does a Biblical Day Begin and End?" by David Wilbur, it states this: "The traditional understanding is that a biblical day begins and ends at sundown. And this seems to be universally accepted from most scholars." So what I'm talking about right now isn't lost. Most people understand this. They can remember back to a time, and they're agreed. So it's good for us to have that locked in now before things get more murky as we go along. Right? So if Saturday is the Sabbath, and the biblical definition says that the day starts at sundown, and it goes from sunset to sunset, that means that the Sabbath is actually from Friday sundown to Saturday sundown. Okay? So that part should be pretty clear, and there's really not, from a lot of really trusted, honest scholars, there's not any real contradiction yet. All right? So now this isn't church doctrine, but after years of being in the church, there are some things that just seem to really illuminate, or insights that stand out. And that is this, that it is helpful and it's good to know exactly when the Sabbath starts and when it ends. It's good to understand that so that we're ready for when holy time begins and when holy time ends. So it's really good. So it's not a matter of, if I have a custom or if I have something that I do in my family, I ring a bell, I light a candle. The thing we do to be aware of when have we entered holy time and when have we exited is not what's important. None of those things are religious. None of those things make you righteous. But it is a point of practicality. It's not a bad idea to do something so that you know and your family, hey, we're now entering holy time. It's not like 2 seconds before. It is actually very different. And so whatever you do or whatever, don't make a religion out of it. Don't make it a point of your, I'm so righteous. But it would be kind of foolish just to be careless and casual about it. There's an exact moment when the Sabbath starts, and there's an exact moment when the Sabbath ends. And what's expected us in between that sundown to sundown is very different than what's expected from us all the rest of the time. And so when we think about it, the Sabbath is not a 24-hour span. Because every day is not exactly the same amount of time. The Sabbath is from sundown to sundown. So when you think about this, there's subtle differences as you go through the year. And if you go to Joshua's long day, some people argue, we don't even know when the real Sabbath is because that messed up all the days. No, it didn't. Now, it wouldn't mess it up if you said it was 24 hours, but what did God say? God says it's from sundown to sundown. So on Joshua's long day, you just had a long day. It's exactly what it says. It was still just one day. Other people get all worked up because they want to use human reasoning about this. But God's very simple. God makes it clear. So we want to make sure that we're doing it the way he says. So, whatever you're doing before the Sabbath, you're doing what you could be working super hard, getting a workout, doing double amount of work because you're trying to, get all your work done at work, or you want to make more money and you want to get that month's quota. No big deal. Do it. Work. But as soon as you move into the Sabbath, you should be doing something different. Have a different mindset, a different thing that goes on there, right? So it's just good to delineate. The Bible talks often about discerning right from wrong, good from evil, right? The first fruits from the tares. We have to make discernments. And all the rest of the time is not holy time. But this time is holy time. And if we don't really make that crystal clear in our minds, then the odds of us keeping it properly are almost impossible. But we don't want to, but if you take and start an hour ahead of time before the Sabbath and do a bunch of Sabbath things that did not make the Sabbath time any more righteous or holy, you just did some good things maybe on your own time. But it's not that you have to do this ahead of time to make this perfect. And it's good to keep those separated. So it's important to know when the Bible is and when it is not. It's good to know, how will you prove that? How will you explain in 10 years to a new person or to a grandchild when all the calendars show Monday is the first day and Saturday is the 6th day of the week? When they go onto Google and say, when is the first day of the week? And now the computers have all adopted this way of reporting things. Oh, it's the first day of the week. And therefore, that's Monday, so Saturday's the 6th day. You see, man has a way of hiding the truth, obscuring the truth, and sometimes just plain out changing it because they don't like the truth. Truth is something to be cherished and preserved, but over time, man has a way of twisting it. Case in point, here's an actual title from a U.S. News and World Report, 2014, not way back in the history. And here's what it says. Did the Holocaust exist? Scary number of people say no, or not even aware of the Holocaust. The worldwide study indicates large numbers of disbelievers the Holocaust ever existed. If they can twist, if they can confuse people and get growing numbers of people to believe that didn't exist, you don't think a devil who wants to deceive the whole world can't get people to start to think that Saturday is the 6th day of the week, then we're being a little bit naive. So we have to think about as the world changes and as sources we could always go through, or if the encyclopedia changes to match the worldwide way of accounting things. And they'll have their reasons for it. But are we going to be able to explain it? Or will we forget? But I like to think of a thing in this way. Abraham, God says, you know what? Abraham is so good and so faithful, and he's going to teach his kids that I know his kids and his grandkids and all of this will know my way. The question I ask myself is, will I understand and teach when the Sabbath is, that it's on Saturday, it goes from sundown to sundown? Will I teach that so well that God can say, I know of Dan, or I know of you and your prodigy, that from generation to generation, everyone in that lineage will know when is the true Sabbath of God, that it starts on Friday sundown to Saturday sundown. And with that, I bid you a happy Sabbath.